and we're happy to see so many people here this afternoon. If I may, moving on to item number 2 is our invocation and pledge of allegiance, and I see my good friend Mr. Leon Miller in the back, and I'd love to ask him to open us with prayer. Thank you, Mr. Miller.
We want to thank you for the people who are gathered here today. We want to thank you for the commission, oh Heavenly Father. Give them the strength and the love to reach out and help each other, oh Heavenly Father. Oh Heavenly Father, continue to guide us in this community, oh Heavenly Father. Again, oh Heavenly Father, we know that you are there with us and always will be, oh Heavenly Father. Again, oh Heavenly Father, we just say thanks for this community and the citizens of this town. In thy name, for Christ's sake, ever. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Miller, I appreciate you always being willing to help us with prayer at the beginning. It always makes me feel calm. And I saw John Miller sitting next to you go into a panic when I said Mr. Miller. I'm just kidding. Moving on to item number 3 is the mayor's report. I'll be meeting with county officials, Tyndall officials, and the other mayors of the cities in Bay County on Thursday at 9 a.m. to sign a letter of support for the rebuilding of Tyndall Air Force Base with Major Ryan. So I'm looking forward to that event and being able to show as one of the cities that we do have support for that rebuilding of that very necessary base here in Bay County. I've had word on a different note via social media that a restaurant known as the My Thai, Thai, Asian Bistro, formerly of 301 Cherry Street in the Cove of Panama City, is going to be relocating very soon to Lynn Haven. Yes. So another place to have some really good food. And they said near the Bailey Bridge, so I've been scoping out all the buildings trying to figure out which one, and I think I've got it. I attended a CRA advisory board meeting on Monday, June the 24th. There was no quorum, and at today's CRA board meeting, 2 new members were appointed, and we're looking forward to the CRA advisory board getting back into regular meetings and being able to do that business. I've met with the city manager, acting city manager, spoke with fire chief, police chief, and as well as Mark Bowen of Bay County Emergency Management for updates regarding Invest 92, which could be upgraded to Tropical Storm Barry if it continues to develop over the next few days. I am thankful, sad for the people to the west, but thankful that it looks like that it might be pushing away from us, but we still are not completely out of, as you know, things can change. So just be alert and know that the city is meeting again tomorrow to look at any preparations that we need to take. Acting city manager and community service director David Horton and his staff made the decision that we would move. We had a hurricane preparedness meeting not too long ago with all the city department heads, and July 20th was going to be a day in Sheffield Park when we would have an animal chipping and shot day. We were going to distribute sandbags to residents, help people sign up for Bay Alert, and just generally get ready for the hurricane season. And then it sort of moved up on us, this time coming from the mountains, which is a little different than what we normally see. But anyway, those sandbags are available today and tomorrow. And I will say that back in 2012 or 13, when we had the 100-year rain or whatever it was, I had sandbags that I got then from Home Depot, and I've had those stored, and they don't disintegrate really. They really stay together well. So getting those ready now and just keeping them in your garage or somewhere where you can use them is kind of a prudent thing to do instead of having to go on the day of the storm and stand in the rain trying to get things together. So I think that's a great idea. It is 10 sandbags to each resident. The sand is there, and you do have to bring your own shovel and do your own bags because we're shorthanded with staff, but the sand is there at the sports complex. I just wanted to say how beautiful everything was on the 4th of July. Thank you to all the city employees who worked so very hard A very special thank you again to James Finch for his generosity and the donation of $20,000 for the fireworks display, which could be seen all over Bay County. I heard they were watching it in St. Andrews long after all the other displays were gone, so they were beautiful. And there were some issues with the changing of the parade route, and I think it was mainly miscommunication. And even though it was, I mean, I didn't particularly like it, and there were others who didn't like it. A lot of residents who live along 5th Street have made plans for that day and all. But I would say that the success and the joy of the celebration that day outweighed what happened. And I think it was mostly miscommunication and new staff. And so I just want to reiterate again how much we appreciate all that the staff did to make this a really, really great day. We really needed that this year after all we've been through. So thank you all so much. I'll be meeting with Dwayne Stevens, the main man in Florida for public supermarkets on Friday. We're having dinner and discussing. They're going to sponsor our October the 10th Remembrance Day and celebration here with food, as they did for Thanksgiving last year. If you were part of that, you can remember that we sliced 200 butterball turkeys and stored them here in this school and fed the. It was an amazing event. The fire department was not happy with me. No, I'm just kidding. They were fine. They said, "How did you get all of these turkeys that need to be cut up?" But anyway, we're going to be working with that. And then I have a meeting next week with Florida Blue, who will also be a major sponsor in helping us to put together this event. I spoke today with Jerry Wilson and his wife Renee, and they're going to be putting on a fundraising event on July 27th in Sheffield Park with a band. They're going to be selling plates of food, and there'll be bouncy houses for children. There was a terrible accident on July 4th. Their nephew had a fireworks accident, 26 years old, and blew almost his entire hand off. I mean, just couple of fingers, and they're trying to help with all the surgery and everything that's going to be coming up for him. So if you can put that on your calendar and support that event, that would be great. I attended a TPO meeting on Wednesday the 26th, and for updates, the 6th laning of Highway 390 on the east side of Highway 77 has been prioritized as number 6 in the funding of many upcoming projects. I really think it needs to go higher on the list than that. And also Commissioner Tommy Ham spoke to that as well in the meeting. I personally plan as Lynn Haven Mayor to schedule a meeting with District FDOT Secretary to discuss this and several other items of concern for the city, including 17th Street and also the golf cart crossing. Many of you may not realize, but FDOT over a year ago approved 9th Street as a place that you could cross 77 with your golf cart to get back and forth between the different parks and all that. And they have yet to install our equipment there. So I'm going to be meeting with them about that. Attended the grand reopening of Stylist Haven Salon on June the 29th. So all the ladies are happy that that's open again. And Lynn Haven continues to reopen. I also spoke with city manager some more. I'm continuing to get calls about code enforcement. And the reason I spoke with her because I'm the one after the storm who said that we would wait until we reached the 6-month mark to start with code enforcement to give people time to come back, to recover, and to move forward. But coming into 10 months, things are looking really bad in some of the neighborhoods. It's causing other people's homes to be devalued, and it's just time for people to make a decision about what they're going to do and start some action. If you know of people, or if you're listening to this via internet and you receive a letter from code enforcement, you're told to appear, you're told to come to the city. If there are extreme circumstances, of course we're going to listen. But just for people who are just ignoring it and not doing what they need to do to take care of business, we need to get that taken care of. So I'm the one to complain to if you hear about that. I'd like to thank Josh Anderson. He's actually here with Greenleaf, he is a contractor who takes care of our parks and a lot of our grass and different aspects of that in the city. And at last meeting, we approved a memorial park in Kensaw Park for the Society of Compassionate Friends. This memorializes people who've lost children and gives them an opportunity to have a place to have a brick or something carved there. This society is going to use a portion of the park and plant beautiful trees, shrubbery. There's going to be several statues. It's really beautiful. There's a copy of the model for this over at the administrative office. But I said all this because Josh contacted me via email and told me that since he is part of the city's park maintenance, that he will maintain that garden for the society free of charge. So we thank you so much for doing that. That's really kind. And then I've been doing a lot of driving on the golf cart, walking the streets, looking at the houses that are abandoned, right-of-ways, ditches, signage, parks, just trying to see the different areas of the city and the progress we're making. And finally, I have a grand opening tomorrow at 10, Hancock Bank for their reopening, and then several meetings for the rest of the week with FEMA, NRCS, our hazard mitigation board. So lots of things going on, and the city is still moving forward. And I feel good about the state of Lynn Haven right now, and you should too. So I'll move on to Commissioner Tender. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Basically, the last couple of weeks, I've had a few issues that I've been dealing with. I've met with the acting city manager a number of times, had lengthy conversations with our animal control over the last 24 hours. And I wanted to address, I did take this to Facebook because I felt the urgency to do so, but I'd like it to go out to all of the public. We have a coyote issue, and it is a serious issue, and they are attacking cats and dogs during the day in Lynn Haven. They're smaller. I mean, the cats and dogs are obviously smaller, but used to be that they only attacked in the evening hours. Well, when I put this on Facebook after receiving a very disturbing phone call from a resident, there was a lot of feedback. This is an ongoing situation, and it's by far not a new one, but I never knew about it. I didn't realize it, and all those that responded didn't realize how bad it was either. So just something to be aware of. They don't just attack small pets at night. They're attacking them during the day as well, and then they take them off. So beware if you have small animals. The other thing, I agree with the mayor. I feel like the 4th of July went very well. I'm ashamed to say I went to the fireworks, first time in 15 years, but because by the end of the day, I'm ready to stay in and stay cool. But I went this year, and I was really impressed. I was impressed with the surroundings and how well it went, how traffic moved like nothing I have ever seen. It was a well-oiled machine, and I was very proud of Lynn Haven. So my hat's off to the police department and anybody who had anything to do with it. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tender. And on top of that, the coyote issue that you mentioned, I think maybe from the city we could make a contact letter or a call to Fish and Wildlife and see if they have some ideas of what we could do to address that. Just a thought. Chief is nodding. Awesome. So moving on to Commissioner Russell.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to say thank you to the employees for the 4th of July parade and festivities. I got to walk the parade and see everybody there was a unique and very enjoyable time. And I know it was a lot of work, and I appreciate everything y'all did. Most of my time the last couple of days have obviously been dealing with this book that the commissioners have gotten. It's the city manager's applications, which we've gotten 49 applications in for it, and it's a daunting task. I've read through it 4 times now, and I'm still trying to decipher some of the information. To that end, I've already met with 6 of the department heads to get their feedback as far as the character values that we need to look at for the city manager, and any questions that they have. Obviously, I want their input since they'll be directly involved with the city manager from now on. One of my number 1 goals is obviously looking for somebody that'll be here for a while. And other than that, it's the typical code enforcement and building department issues that we're going to continue to deal with. And I'm still been very impressed with Ms. Richards and Mike Gordon and that department and the way they're handling everything. So, and that's all I've got, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Aldridge.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Been busy couple weeks. We've been dealing with citizens, or I have been dealing with citizens that are still fighting insurance and still, dealing with some FEMA stuff. And, anybody that's still fighting anything with insurance, their rule of thumb is deny, delay, and drag your feet, right? But if you keep fighting the good fight, they will relent. So, hopefully if you're fighting out there, keep standing. We do have the Hancock Bank grand opening tomorrow at 10 a.m. I will be there for that. And of course, I was there for the parade. It was nice and cool that day for all of us, fortunately. It was a great day. It really was. The citizens did a great, or the employees did a great job, I felt like, with that parade. And it went seamlessly. So thank you to the employees as well. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Perno?
I attended a city service meeting the day after our last commission meeting with David Horton and our city manager, Miss Vicky. And I sat in the meeting and observed the folks representing the senior center, and it was started out as kind of a clash, but it ended up with a good resolution, and I think everybody went away happy, and I really like what was going on in the meeting as far as the redesigning of the parks and whatnot. The city engineer was there, and the people on the board seemed to be really good folks, and I was fortunate to be at the meeting. I also attended the TPO meeting, as you did, Mayor, and that was my first meeting, and I volunteered to be an alternate to a subcommittee, so we'll see what future meetings bring, and just to give a little representation for the city of Lynn Haven. And then, of course, 4th of July was a great experience for me, being the first time commissioner and seeing folks out on the parade route and stuff. It was overwhelming, and it really is a credit to our city to see what we do every year, and our staff was just amazing. So I appreciate everything, and I was wanting to say thank you for the magnets and the ball cap. So, and then the city manager search is in the forefront of my mind, and hopefully we move forward and make the best decision possible going on. So that's all I have, and I want to say thank you to everyone. So
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'll move on to item number 5, which is the acting city manager's report. Ms. Vicki Gaynor.
Thank you, Mayor. The past 2 weeks, we've been meeting with some business owners about the plans for their businesses going forward, whether they were, hit by hurricane or wanting to expand. So we met with a couple of those businesses. Thank you to everyone for the 4th of July. The residents, staff, everyone. It was truly a great success. I think that giving us July 5th off was absolutely wonderful, because staff worked from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. that night. And so I say thank you to the commission on behalf of the staff for allowing us to be off on the 5th of July. Next, of course, Mayor's already mentioned about the sandbags, and we are watching the storm, making sure that we're on top of things, trying to be proactive, making sure our residents have what they need. We're sending out Public Works and staff to try to clean as many ditches as possible, to be proactive in the things that we know will maybe flood some areas. Some of those areas we will not be able to fix. That will be fixed with the new grant that's been given to us by NRCS. We actually have a meeting on Thursday. It's a pre-conference meeting where we kind of get instructions of how we will carry out this grant. And as soon as we get instructions from them, we can start cleaning out the waterways and the ditches. We signed the agreement, but we still have to go through what's called a pre-conference to get instructions of how the grant will be carried out, because it is a lot of paperwork. But in all, we will be able to receive some money and get some reimbursements back from that. So we're really excited about that. We've been doing interviews for the IT manager and the budget manager, and we've kind of narrowed those down. And so we'll probably have someone for those positions next week. I met with Mike Gordon, and I can say he is doing a wonderful job. My phone calls are down to probably about 3 a day instead of the 20 a day that I was having. And so I say thank you to Mike Gordon and to Amanda and everyone in the permitting. It is a very difficult time for all departments. Everyone is working and doing 4 and 5 jobs. And I commend the staff, and I thank everyone who has tried to move this city forward regardless of what's going on. So I would say thank you again to our staff and everyone else. We are working on budget now. In the next couple of weeks, I will be meeting individually with every department head along with our finance director to talk about budget and to look at their budgets and see how we're going to line those up with this coming year. We have 3 RFQs that are out right now. That is the RFQs for King Griffin Park, for Kensall Park, and the RFQ for the roof for the Senior Center, Garden Club, and the Service Center. We're very excited about all of those things. What does that say? Why is that so exciting? It's because we're moving forward and we're getting some things done. And I know, again, it's a slow process, but we're getting it done right the first time. Procurement has to take place in the right order. But when it's all said and done, we'll have a beautiful city on every side. So I'm really excited about that. And then tomorrow we'll have the community services meeting at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And also, I would just like to personally thank you for all that you've done since March to keep the city on track. It has moved seamlessly, and I am very, very grateful for the work that you do. I generally am out and about, and I very rarely see Vicki Gaynor's car leave the city hall before 6 o'clock. So I'm very grateful to all that she's doing. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6, city attorney's report.
Thank you, Mayor. One issue I'd like to at least make the commission aware of is, as has been mentioned a few times, the city entered into a contract with Mike Gordon due to exigent circumstances. That contract time period of 60 days. That time expires July 28th. So if the city wishes to use a third party going forward, I think the city should look at its procurement and following the city's purchasing policy for long-term, assuming that a third-party vendor is the route the city wants to go. But we will need to do something here shortly, whether that's solicit third-party or look at going in-house, whatever the city's desire may be.
And I would like to make a comment about that, if I may, Adam. I'll take credit for bringing Mike Gordon before the commission to consider, because he is both a friend and I also know what his record is. And so, I would hope that, it's possible to have an in-house inspector as well as Mike Gordon. I mean, we might need that many, but I would certainly hope, based on what he's been doing on the past few weeks, that we would consider keeping him.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
That wasn't a suggestion for what route the city should
Oh,
go.
I was suggesting that to the commission, not to you, sir.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
So I left out A under number 5. Thank you, Ms. Gaynor, and that is the employee of the month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The Employee Month is always a special time that we get to recognize some of our employees individually. They all do a great job, and then every month we try to decide on who's going to be an Employee of the Month. It's really a great thing to say. It's very difficult to do because we have great employees. This month's Employee of the Month is Ashley Williams. She actually thinks she's here to take minutes today, but she's actually here to get the Employee of the Month. Ashley's been with us for over a year. Ashley came to us as a part-time admin clerk, and this is one person that everyone will say, oh, don't mess with Ashley. She is our sweetest employee ever. And she works very, very diligently all the time. Will help anyone do anything at any time, and volunteers, just helps every department out. And so we are very lucky and very blessed to have an employee that works for us. She works in the purchasing, putting in all the POs. And if you know the city of Lynn Haven, we have lots of paper. And so it keeps her job very, very busy. So today I say thank you, Ashley, for being a great employee, and especially Employee of the Month.
The next item on tonight's agenda is item number 7, the public commentary. Is there anyone in the audience? And the way our meeting is conducted, if you haven't visited us often, is that during this time, if there's anything that you'd like to speak on that may or may not be on the agenda, you may do it at this time. We ask that you try to keep your comments within about 3 minutes. And if there's something on the agenda that you'd like to talk about tonight, you can do it during this time, but you can also do it as we're discussing it as well. So is there anyone who'd like to speak tonight? Yes, ma'am. Come on. If you would come to the microphone, that because we are on a live feed and then people can hear what you're saying. Thank you.
And I'm short, so.
Just
Hello.
pull it down.
My name is Tracy Anglin. I own First Step Child Development Center on the corner of 11th and Florida here in Lynn Haven. And I am your retention pond for Highway 77. I'm very concerned about the weather. I have spoken to several mayors, starting with Walter Kelly. I've been through several of the city managers. Tried to be patient, tried to be understanding. Yesterday, if my husband and I would not have been outside getting drenched, standing over the only 2 drains, both on the edge of my property, keeping them clear with all of the debris, we would have flash flooded into my business, which is a child care center again. I actually do have one of my parents here that many years ago, 2013, July 4th, when the flood came in, that we were carrying children out of the building because it flooded so quickly. And when 77 was redone by the Department of Transportation, we went and tried to talk about that because they built it up higher. Then another sidewalk went in on the other side, built up higher. House across the street, demolished, built up higher. Truly, I have now become the retention pond. I'm very scared. I'm very nervous. When you were talking about coyotes, we have a feral cat problem. It is on the property right on 77 and 11th. We do have coyotes there. They do come out at night. I've only seen 2, but it's very wooded. It's very messed up. And right now, the way everything is, all of that debris and a lot of things that have been dropped off by the check cashing place are literally flowing with the water, covering the drains.
Okay.
And we need to do something. So I don't know what can be suggested. I don't know if they can build somewhat of a barrier, because when it comes off 77, it's like a river. It's covering the drain immediately and everything's flooding.
Thank
So I
you.
would appreciate you please looking into that.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And we will.
Is there anyone else? Yes, sir, Mr. Miller?
I just want to throw out a thanks to the who, on my side of the town, now some ditches all stopped up, and made one call, and they came in, and they really did a good job in getting the ditches ready for this rain coming in this weekend.
Okay.
Did a real good job.
Is that on Mississippi? Is that where you are?
Mississippi and Louisiana, all over that area.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Come
I'm
ahead.
just where we go from 2012 Throttle.
You're fine. Come on up.
We have drainage ditches all the way around our cul-de-sac. It also runs behind Mullet School Road and another housing area back into the bay, which I was informed that our trees are down, been down, and I've lived here 40-something years, and I've called every year to have these ditches cleaned, of which out of 40 years, only one time have they been cleaned, because the city has to borrow the equipment from the state when the state's not using the equipment. That's pretty sad that we have to borrow heavy equipment to get in to clean the ditches. Well, the city still hadn't got equipment because other things are more in priority than buying equipment to clean ditches. So we have a hurricane now. We've got trees down, which are dead in our ditches. We can't get anything done. We've been calling, trying to get assistance and help to get these ditches cleaned since January. And now I've told that nothing's going to be done until we've got a grant. Who has worked on getting this grant till this month, when a grant probably should have started back in January to get these trees and all this stuff moved so this water can run out of these ditches into the bay? I'm kind of concerned about what has been going on in the city of Lynn Haven, other than I know that you guys has worked very hard because I've seen it. But when homes flood, and it's not any other problem except for the city of Lynn Haven, because these ditches belong to the city of Lynn Haven, it's their right of way, and they're not taking care of them, what should the homeowners do? I've asked, why can't you go up there and why can't you go up there and get the big heavy equipment to go on down there and move those trees so that we can get drainage? Well, we're not going to do that because that's going to mess up FEMA. It's not going to mess up FEMA because FEMA is only taking out the trash in the front of the homes in the ditches. They're not messing with the ditches, the drainage ditches behind the homes.
If I may, we had a long conversation via social media, the two of us.
Yes, we did.
And what I was trying to point out is the waterways is really what they call them over behind Bel Air and Publix and in that
is
area.
correct. And we were
And-
told that we will flood.
And I believe you, and there have been several residents that we've been working with since the beginning. In January, we were still removing debris. Lynn Haven has been on top of debris ahead of every city in the county.
Debris in the street, not debris in
let
the
me-
ditches behind the homes.
If I may, the hazard mitigation grant project and the NRCS project and FEMA, it's not that the city has waited until now to do it. It's been a very long process. Everything has to be carefully documented. It's very frustrating. I hear you. I live in the old part of Lynn Haven. I flood as well. And it's very, very frustrating to have to wait. This moves at the speed of government. But if we move ahead, if we go in and hire someone or bring in that kind of heavy equipment, I can't help what was not bought 20 years ago. I wasn't here. But what I'm trying to
No, but
say.
what I'm saying is just recently y'all talked about a ballpark and money for a ballpark.
I think that's
Is it
been
still on?
changed. You need to
Ballpark
get a little
money?
closer to it.
Ballpark money?
Okay, you said ballpark 3 times.
Okay,
All right,
that's kind of
if-
stupid whenever we're needing
Okay,
heavy
do you want an
equipment.
answer or do you just want to
Oh, no.
talk?
Go ahead.
You may talk all you like. You can
No,
say
go
whatever
ahead.
you like.
I want to
Okay.
hear the answer because.
There are different pots of money. There's money that comes to us to redo our parks. We can't spend it on anything else. There's money that comes to us that we can use to clean the waterways, and we can't use that for anything else. There's money that comes to us for buildings, to redo our buildings, to rebuild. It's been a very long process. We're still in the midst of it. You are welcome. If you want to look at my calendar, if you'd like to come and sit in on some of the meetings and see what the process is, we all get frustrated with it. And most of us live right here in the city. If you'd like to come in tomorrow, I'd be happy to meet with you. If you just wanted to say what you wanted to say, that's fine. But if you'd like to meet and look at how the process is working,
Well, I think everybody in the city of Lynn Haven would like to know what ditches have been cleaned in the last 20
that's
years.
posted on the website. And at this
Because-
point, we're 3 minutes and well over, and I think I've tried to answer questions.
Okay, so the trees, if we flood, the trees is not going to be moved, so we're
They
going to
can't be
flood.
moved this week, ma'am. There's nothing I can do other
Okay,
than get out there
so-
myself and try to pull them out.
Well,
Of
and
course,
you
that's
can't-
facetious, but
okay.
there's nothing I can do about
So
it.
all the homeowners should sue the city of Lynn Haven for not doing their job.
Thank you for coming tonight, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? And you are welcome tomorrow to come and we can schedule. I mean, if you're not willing to come in and learn the problem, then I can't explain it or no one else can. I can allow you to come to any of the meetings. I'll allow you to see any of the paperwork, anything that you'd like to see. Set up an appointment, come in, bring neighbors, and I don't mean that in any way except a friendly, cordial invitation. So you're very welcome, and my phone number's published. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Mr. Robitaille?
My name is Dale Robitaille, 1805 New Hampshire Avenue. Good afternoon, Madam
Good
Mayor.
afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Tinder. Good afternoon, City Manager Gaynor. I'm here, I missed today's CRA meeting, but it's kind of cute, really, that what Commissioner, City Manager Gaynor explained in her report was a lack of people and people doing multi jobs. Well, there's nothing worse than that. Nothing worse than that. And the reason we have that position is because I'm like, wait, you justified our final line by laying people off and not filling in retirements. So we run on, and I have a real personal issue with one person appointed to multiple jobs. And in my opinion, he's not qualified to do any. But neither here nor there. I would like to encourage you to hire qualified people. Qualified, not somebody's brother-in-law, but somebody that actually has some experience. Now, going on to today's meeting, I'm here to tell you that people like me, small people like me, we have one major financial investment. That's our home. And when you say words like curb appeal, when you say neighborhood depreciation, cold sweats run down our backs because that's what we got. We've got one major thing. So we have a real problem with other people. You can go around Lynn Haven and see it all over the place, but in my neighborhood especially. And I had a guy do this, one of the realtor appraisers, and I've lost $30,000 already on the value of my home because of my neighborhood, because of my neighbors. So here I'm here today, honestly, and I'll even rent the truck to take you around. I'd like to take you on a tour of my neighborhood. I'd like to see the guy across the street who's running a boarding house for illegals, I believe. And he's got his tacos wagon in front of his house. I just love getting out of my home and seeing his happy jalapeno staring me in the face. And I like to see my neighbor who promised that he was going to dig out his ditches. I expect to be flooded when I get home. I can take you one block down where there's two homes directly across the street from each other that I worried about right from the start as being abandoned properties. And then you go just a little bit farther down to the street, because Commissioner Tanner's been on this tour. Then just before you get to the next street, going down 19th now, you'll find our friend there on the right-hand side. He has got so much trash in his yard. He actually has a tent now posted at the edge of the street, Now, we don't talk about the rest of us. We can't get on the right of way. Oh, hell no. We can't get on the right of way. But he's got a tent posted on the right of way where he keeps storage stuff. You know who I'm talking about. You've taken him to court. You've had a magistrate there before. Then you go just a little bit farther and you turn left on Carolina and you look to the right. And there's a place that, well, my point is, there's people like me, little people, who work real hard and put into our investments all we own. But for people just to sit back and not do anything, I mean, one guy's got this grass, the other guy doesn't. That's where code enforcement comes in. And I'm telling you, code enforcement, we're talking bulldozers here. The two homes that have been sitting there for 10 months, totally abandoned, and code enforcement must drive right by and not see them. Going down the street where that guy's got all the trash from the one end to the other, code enforcement doesn't see that. Now, there's a reason for that. It's called employee supervision. And that's what I'm talking about earlier, about hiring the right people for the right job. Not asking one person to do 5 or 6 jobs. Johnny come lately in this job. They don't have any experience in any of them. It's the only one available to us. So I'm asking you right from my heart, come by on this tour. I'll take you on a tour and see what you think. Thank you for this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Robitaille. Thank you for your service to this country, too. Mr. Robitaille is a retired Marine and a good friend of mine.
One thing, if I may,
Quickly.
I'm sorry. The shirt on my 72nd birthday, my wife finally agreed to allow me to dress myself. So thank you to her and thank you to Walmart.
Thank you, sir. And there is, as we said in the beginning of the meeting, code enforcement is going to really crack down now. I mean, there's been enough time. And so if you know of somebody that code enforcement cracks down on and they're, not worthy of that for some reason, they've just moved back to town, they need help or whatever, there can be mitigating circumstances. But there are 2 homes in my neighborhood as well, Mr. Robitaille. My house has depreciated. And 2 of them look just like they do now before the storm. So code enforcement problems didn't just start now.
I know that.
It's been going on for a while. So, but we're going to work on it. Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Matt Cherry, 808 Tennessee Avenue. I was just wondering if there was any update on the Rails to Trails project.
I don't have an update for you other than what we did during the CRA meeting today. We are going to schedule very quickly a dedication ceremony for the first trailhead, to dedicate that to Mrs. Frances Whitcoff, who worked so hard on that trail. But Chris Forehand, who's done some of the engineering work, would have the latest on whether we have been notified yet that we can move forward with the construction process. And I don't believe that has happened,
have
because it
not.
usually notifies us
We
who it
have not.
has. So that's
Thank
where we
you.
are. But we are still moving forward with it.
Thank you.
It's another government process. Is there anyone else? I think that looks like the end of the public commentary. And again, an invitation to anyone who's listening. Everyone is concerned about the flooding in Lynn Haven, the code enforcement, all of those things. All I would say is the same thing that I said on social media to several people last night, including some who've spoken here today, that this is going to be a very long process. We're not quite 10 months out from the third worst storm in United States recorded history. And we have come a long way, a long, long way in a very short period of time. And this time, 10 months from now, we're going to be a lot further along. But that doesn't help the feelings of the business owner with the daycare that's worried tonight that her daycare may flood. It doesn't help Mrs. Miller's, doesn't help her feelings about the flooding and in her area. And so as a commission, I'll allow any other commissioner who'd like to say something to this as well before we move on. But I can tell you that our acting city manager is pushing as hard as anyone can push to get things done. I made a scathing comment or two meetings ago about the way that I feel about how some of the right-of-way cleaning has been handled. I even made a comment, we had a one street at a time. I've stood in the ditches with a shovel and a rake, pulling stuff out of culverts in front of people's homes, not my own home, but other people's, as a volunteer. It is backbreaking work, it's painstaking. Heavy equipment will not clean the garbage out of a culvert. It takes a person in the ditch with a rake, with a shovel doing it. And it is hard work. And I've seen, in the midst of the disaster, able-bodied people sit on the porch having a cold drink, watching the mayor in the ditch cleaning out their culvert and thanking me for doing it. And I'm just like, really? So there's a lot that you can't do for yourselves, and there are a lot of people who are not able to do for themselves. But if you have a culvert in your driveway that's filled up with some trash, you know, if you can get it out of there, get it out. We've got to help ourselves a little bit. The city is lacking in how we've handled code enforcement, and the city is lacking in how we've kept up ditch maintenance over the years. We are lacking, and we have to improve that. And we'll do all we can to help you. Does anyone else want to speak to that besides me before I move on?
Mayor, I'd like to say something.
Go ahead, please, Commissioner.
In regards to the daycare, I know this sounds so elementary, but sometimes go back to what works. If there's some kind of barricade that can go around the two drains that you have, are they on your property or in the middle of the street?
No, they're both on my property,
Okay.
and I've been trying to find out who I need to talk to, because there's no other drain,
Mhm.
and everything's been paved over.
And the object is to keep all the paper and all the trash and everything from going down there.
And it runs like a river off of 77.
Mhm.
And if you had something that when it came off 77, that you could divert it to the nice big drain that you built that, by the way, is about 14 inches above ground,
Yeah.
that would be perfect. By the time it goes in that 14 inches, I'm blessed.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yep.
And I think maybe this might be a situation where we do something as elementary as putting a tractor tire, something around that drain, just to not allow the paper and everything. Of course, that might build up too. I'm not an engineer, but I know there's got to be there's got to be some way.
Your city engineer owns a piece of property across the street. Talk to him.
Okay, that might be where we should start.
And
Thank
our
you.
Public Works Director is sitting 2 rows behind you, so before you leave tonight, maybe you could talk with him and see if he has some suggestions. There he is, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we had another commissioner who wanted to speak, if you don't mind, and then I'll let you come back up.
Yes, ma'am. I was just going to say, I know that, we're having issues. I'm fielding calls just like the other commissioners and the mayor about these issues, and it is a major concern. And the only thing I would ask is that that we are concerned. And to be quite frank, there's been 40 years of commissions that have been up here, boards that have been up here and have not done anything, and they've kicked the can down the road. And they did that because it costs money and you tear up people's yards and blah, blah, blah. Well, the hurricane really kind of pulled it out, the truth of the situation with a lot of our drainage issues that we have here. So we do want to work on it. I want to work on it. I know the board and the mayor wants to work on this to fix it. And we're fixing, 45, 50 years worth of stuff that hasn't been done. So please work with us, I guess is what I'm saying. I'll promise you I want to help you though. Thank you.
Thank you. And I had one more thing to say to that. In the 4 years that I was mayor, we paved 23 miles of road that had not been paved, and we had replaced so many culverts and drains, and the storm has wiped a lot of that out and crushed it and destroyed it, which has not happened. So every board has not been not doing anything. So, Ms. Richard.
What I wanted to say was kind of similar to what you just said, Commissioner, and that is that before the hurricane, months before, maybe even a year before, I brought to the attention of a city manager, maybe even when it was Joel Schubert initially, that one of the major problems that we had with code enforcement and also business licenses was that there were no teeth in our ordinances. So there are certain things which code enforcement can do, but only those things that are stipulated within ordinance. And then we can't issue citations. We can't charge people. We have no system as to where they will go to pay their fines and that kind of thing. And so I asked way back if perhaps we could have a commission workshop to discuss some of these things so that the commissioners could decide how much they wanted a citation to be, how long they wanted to give people for certain things, like tall grass. Do you want to give them 7 days? Do you want to give them 14 days to tidy that up? If they don't, we don't really need to be taking everybody to the magistrate. We could be issuing citations. Unfortunately, no city manager so far has actually brought that to you to have a workshop on, because there always seems to be something else which is seen as more important. And then it's not until there's a major issue that it keeps coming back again. And that's one of the major reasons why nothing really seems to be being done, because we have no way of making people pay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wanted to speak to that issue on the board? Okay, we will move on then to the consent agenda, which is item number 8, the minutes from the June 25th regular meeting. Motion needed to approve the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion, deletions, or corrections to the previous minutes? There appear to be none. Any from the public? Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, so the minutes are approved, and that was the consent agenda. There is no old business. Moving on to new business, item number 9, discussion and approval of renewal of group medical, dental, vision, and other benefits for the city of Lynn Haven staff, and our city manager has a report.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to ask that Bentress, Owen Wingate, and Wes Wingate come up and talk to us about our city's medical and health plan. Excuse me.
Perfect, thank you. My name is Owen Wingate. I'm with Aventress, and we're your broker for your medical, dental, vision, life benefit plan. And so we got our Blue Cross and Blue Shield renewal recently. We were able to get it negotiated down to a 2.9% increase, which we were super excited about. In the world of health insurance, that's fantastic. And so we have made a proposal to continue to offer the same benefits, not make any plan changes. Everybody here's had enough change. And if that is an affordable thing to do and we're within the budget, we also made a recommendation that we put a little bit more contribution into one of the plans. The main plan that we have is that has a generic only drug card. So some of the people that have had to buy up to the other plan to afford their prescriptions, the employees, it's burdensome on them. So we thought if we could put just a little bit more in there, it takes the overall increase up to about a little over 3%. So it wasn't a big dollar issue because the number of people in that plan, but that would take care of the medical problem, the medical insurance. We also recommended that we had the dental insurance that we renewed at a flat renewal. We recommended that we add a plan to that, so that it wouldn't cost anybody that has that plan today any more money, but that we have a richer option because the dental plan has not changed for years. And so very anybody that's been to the dentist, it costs a lot of money to go to the dentist, especially if you have crowns, bridges, implants, that kind of stuff. The new plan would give the employees the opportunity to buy up to a richer plan and just pay the difference in the cost of the two plans, but didn't affect the other plan at all. Okay. Most all the other plans that we have were in rate guarantee, so we really didn't have to deal with those. We did have some recommendations from staff that we maybe offer a voluntary short-term disability program so that the employees could buy into a short-term disability program for themselves, that if they got sick or hurt off the job and they couldn't come to work, that it would actually pay them an income. So we have made a recommendation that we put that on we shopped it out and got some rates and made a recommendation that we put that on the offering this year as well. And the other offering that we wanted to offer was a voluntary life insurance policy. Again, it would be voluntary, wouldn't cost the city any money, but it would allow the employees to buy a permanent life insurance policy that has a long-term care rider on it so that they could actually use part of the death benefit for long-term care in the event they needed it long-term. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any, were you finished, sir? I'm
Wes, do you
sorry.
want to say
Owen
something?
did a great job.
And are there any questions from the board regarding this report? And we appreciate you all being here.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may.
Please.
So the 2.9% increase, are we looking at every year, we're probably going to be looking at an increase?
I would think so, yes. Now, and most years probably higher than that. We got lucky last year. We had a 2 last year. You may recall a couple of years ago, we changed the plan design around and we actually mitigated an increase by offering the plan with the prescription drug card and doing the healthcare reimbursement account, which I didn't mention, I apologize. That worked out well. We budgeted the first year close to $60,000 in reimbursements, and it ended up being $17,000. And then last year, we didn't even change the budget, and it's $20,000. So that plan is working well. It kind of reset some of the claims experience that we've had. And so I do think budget-wise, I would normally tell you to budget a 6 or a 7%. The problem is in the world we live in today with the ACA, we can't raise the deductible but $1,000. So that would be the savings that we could get. So we're really kind of hoping for good claims experience and healthy employees.
Mayor, if I may?
Please,
Yeah,
go ahead.
that was one of my questions, the claims experience. And when we first talked about this, I don't know if you were at the meetings that I was kind of adamant that the city was going to pay, I wanted the city to pay 100%.
Yes.
For the employees, obviously not for the spouses and children. And if I remember correctly, there was a question about the percent payout, and that there was a possibility that we could get a rebate to help pay so that we could go to the 100%.
So you're
Is that
correct
still not an
about that.
option?
So that's still an option. So we actually last year implemented that program it's called a Pro Share program with the Blues. So we are having good claims experience this year, and there's a possibility that we get a check back next year. And at that point in time, we would be able to look at it and say, we got back X number of dollars, we could allocate that towards the employee-only share, and maybe within a year get to that through that dividend rebate that we would get. So that is still there. As of today, if we were to run the report today, y'all would get a check. So
Please know I'm going to continue to push for the 100%.
And I appreciate that. And we also have numbers for that too. So they're not in the stuff that you have, but as we get the claims experience that we've had for over a year, we'll be able to look at actual reports and you'll see where the money's going. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Good evening, Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. I too was attentive of that 100%. And one of the questions that came up as I read this, and I watched this program evolve, was what is the percentage we are paying from the city to the employee? Now we have broadened this out to the employees. This also goes to the commissioners too. They're part of this.
If they take it.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's correct. There's only one person that's excluded from this, and that's the city manager. He has the prerogative of not taking the insurance, but he also takes the money and puts it in his pocket. Is that offered to all the employees?
It's not offered to the commission because I haven't taken
I
it
know
since
it's
I've
not-
been mayor.
I know it's not offered. I'm treating you just like the staff because you are by the state and by the IRS considered employees of the municipality.
No, we are not, sir.
Well, yes, you are by the IRS.
Okay, I'm not going to argue, but we are not employees, sir.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay, let's move on.
But you do get insurance, and that's under the employee
Okay,
program.
did you have another question for them?
Yeah, the question is, do we have that program available just to one person, the city manager? Or is it available to all the employees? And the second thing is your 2.9 increase, that increase going to be across the board to the employees and the city?
Yes.
Okay, that answers that. The first question.
The first question, sir, is that the commission negotiated that contract with Mr. White,
Correct.
and the commission approved for him to continue with his own insurance and to be compensated by the city.
Mhm.
So this commission approved that. That is not something that just happens. It was just part of his
I-
contract
I
negotiation.
understand. I
Okay,
read
well,
that
that's
in
the answer to the question.
The question is it's not going to be available to the employees. What is the percentage that on the average given to an employee that the city pays for every
Yes, sir.
employee?
It's 80%, sir.
No, it's 95% for the first plan and then 85% for the second.
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because I heard 65, 95, and
For
where
the
you would
employee.
like to go. Thank you. That answers my question.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Y'all good with us?
Any other questions for him? Mr. Owen? No. Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time then, it's a discussion and approval of renewal of group medical, dental, vision, and other benefits for the city of Lynn Haven staff. Ms. Gaynor, did you have any other comments you wanted to make?
I will just say that one of the great things about the city of Lynn Haven and for us to retain staff, which is really, really important during this time, is that we have great benefits. And, while our pay may be a little bit low, we keep our employees because they do value the benefits here. And so this has really been a great plan. It's been great working with Ventress. They work with us. We met with them several times to make sure that the employees had the best benefits that we could afford and offer. And so I am very pleased with what they've come back with, and so is the personnel director as well.
Thank you. So is there a motion for the approval of the renewal of group medical, dental, vision, and other benefits for the city of Lynn Haven staff?
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, thank you. Moving to item number 10, and thank you so much for you all being here tonight to answer those questions, and thank you for all that you do for our employees. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. Item number 10, discussion and possible action regarding a forensic audit for the city of Lynn Haven, and Commissioner Tender brought this item to the agenda tonight. Commissioner Tender?
Thank you, Mayor. It's been approximately 2 years ago when I was first elected that I came to this board and asked for a forensic audit for many reasons, but back then it was for protection for the new commissioners coming in, and it was met with great opposition. And some of those that opposed it are no longer here, but I'm asking this board to approve the city of Lynn Haven to have a forensic audit. We're about, what's that, close the barn door after the cow got out or whatever, saying we're a little late on it, but I think it's imperative that we have a forensic audit for this city and get our ducks in a row and make sure and know that we are doing everything that we can do the exact and proper way to do it. And with our new commissioners, Commissioner Aldridge and Commissioner Perno, I would think this protects them too, to have a forensic audit. So they're coming in clean. And so I'd like to discuss it if anybody has anything to say, but I will continue to ask for it because I think it's so, so very important. And we've all just learned that, how important. And it may have saved us a lot had we done it 2 years ago. But that's all I have to say. I'd like to make a motion that
Go
we
ahead,
get,
Commissioner Tender.
that we at least get prices on a forensic audit And I can't imagine that it would be too expensive, no matter how much it is. Thank you.
So there's been a motion that the city would go forward with a forensic audit by Commissioner Tender. Is there a second?
I'll make a second for the purpose of discussion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there anyone on the board who would like to comment?
Mayor, if I may?
Go ahead, Commissioner Russell.
It would be my understanding that this would have to go out as an RFQ for professional services, so we can't ask for pricing. Is there any way that we can get a ballpark number of what this possibly could cost the city before we move forward with an RFQ to do an audit? I mean, that's my concern. I don't have a problem having the forensic audit, and I think it might be a good idea. I just don't want us to spend $100,000 to have a forensic audit done right now when we've got other expenses. That's my only concern.
Commissioner Aldridge?
I'm sorry. To piggyback on that a little bit, it's not, I agree, I'm not opposed to an audit at all. And this is more of a question than anything. With us all being in modular buildings and other buildings, would it not be more advantageous for us to wait until we're more grounded and established in a building? Or I guess what I'm afraid of is that employees are going to be mixed up in this audit and they're already displaced as it is. Is it going to cause a circus at City Hall, or should we wait until dust has settled, I guess?
Is there anyone else on the board who'd like to make a comment? I would follow up with what Commissioner Tender said. I asked for the same thing 4.5 years ago when I first became mayor, and was not allowed to have that done. And as I came in, one of the reasons that I believe I was elected at that time is because of the way that money was transferred from account to account to account to account. We had 10 employees making $1.3 million, 10, and 6 of them were married to each other. And that money was coming out of the stormwater account, going into the general fund, and I could go on with many, many, many more stories, which contributed to my election as mayor. So I did agree with what Commissioner Tender said. I don't know if there's, $100,000 does sound like a lot of money, but it's not nearly as much money as has been thrown down the tubes for many years here. My only question would be, how far back do you want to go? And what I was told at one point was, well, you'll only be able to go back 5 years because the records are destroyed after that. We're only required to keep them for 5 years. So the longer you wait, and there were people who, after I became mayor, resigned, and then the city manager allowed them to stay on for 5 more months in their offices after they resigned. So, that to me was extremely suspect. I didn't like it, but there was nothing I could do about it because we have the city manager form of government, and the city manager pretty much calls the shots. So, completely in favor of what Commissioner Tender has asked for, and I don't see that what building we're in would have anything to do with that at all. We have an auditor now who comes into all the different rooms, and while I'm speaking to the auditor deal, our present auditors, we had an audit, a draft audit due on June 30th, and they pretty much refused to have it to us on time. I had a conversation with them, and I won't even go into all the details of the conversation in a public meeting, but we had quite a detailed and quite a heated discussion because I've asked for a different auditing firm since I've been mayor. We've had the same auditing firm for over 20 years in this city. And surely there's a pile of dust behind a door somewhere that should have been turned up instead of a perfect audit every single year. And this perfect audit that we got every year had no checks and balances on it, so that the mayor of the city, who's also the treasurer, did not see the checks until they were written. You sign a register that, yes, I see that these are the checks you've written. It should have been another way. The mayor should have been approving the checks before they were written. And that's why we are where we are today. So Commissioner Tender, I applaud you for bringing that forward, and that's all I have to say. Anyone else?
Mayor, I just want to be sure if we vote now, we're voting for the pricing of forensic audit, not voting to do a forensic audit.
Well,
correct?
that was not Commissioner Tender's motion. She might be amenable to amending her motion, but that was not her motion.
Thought she said.
Go ahead.
Mayor, we're referring to professional services that would be done via RFQ, so
Right.
pricing would not be included in any of the solicitations.
And I think that what Commissioner Russell, if I understood him correctly, was asking is I think he was looking for maybe a ballpark figure that when you called for a forensic audit, are we looking at 500,000, 200,000, not for a specific firm to give a specific price? I think that's,
I'm sure you can ask for comparatives from firms that handle this, but the actual solicitation by statute, they will not be allowed to put in numbers. You can't consider numbers. You can only consider qualifications when engaging this type of firm.
and the information can be found by simply going on the internet and asking for the size of a city and the amount of the budget and that kind of thing. And I did find some answers that way myself. So,
Then Mayor, I mean, if I may,
go ahead.
may I suggest that we table this until the next meeting so the other commissioners can go look? Because I mean, I'm got serious concerns with not knowing how much we're fixing to commit.
It's the pleasure of this commission. I can't make a motion, nor can I second one.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
Mayor, if I may
Sure.
say something here. I understand the concern for the amount of money this is going to cost, but like what you alluded to, the millions, certainly hundreds of thousands that have been flushed down the commode are nothing compared to what it's going to cost to get things back and get our house straight. I can remember 2 years ago, and that commissioner was not, he's no longer with us, but he said, when I made that motion, he said, well, you are insinuating that something's wrong. Well, no kidding. Something was wrong. And yes, it still is. But I mean, I just, it's so imperative. It's like buying, and this is certainly nothing like it, but buying a brand new car and never washing and waxing it to protect it. I mean, you've got tons of money that we're trying to protect. So, do I want to spend $2 million on a forensic audit? No. But I think we've already proven to our residents that we are very money conscious. I mean, we didn't spend $6 million on a sports park, and they appreciated that. I mean, we're not talking millions of dollars. So,
Commissioner Tender, would you consider amending your motion to carry this forward to another meeting to give the other commissioners a chance to do a little research?
absolutely.
would
I'll
you like-
amend,
would
I'll
you like
amend
to-
my motion.
Would you like to make your motion again in a different word?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion that we carry this over to the next meeting to allow the other commissioners to look into the potential cost of doing a forensic audit.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Any from the public? Yes, Mr. Walker?
Rich Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Again, it seems that we're going to kick the can down the road again. We've been at this for a long time. When this first came up, Ms. Tinder, we all knew. This people of this town, you are correct, have suffered under 17 years of a mayor and a city manager that started the ball rolling and have kept it going. Mrs. Tinder, the commissioner, tried to stop this. She's right. To protect yourselves, you new commissioners, the best thing to do is to know where you stand when you take over. You're all correct. You should not kick this down the road. You understood this when you were elected. You knew it. We all knew it. And we advised you to do it. We watched when it first came up, forensic. I've never seen commissioners shake in their boots when the word forensic came out. Those commissioners are gone. They're gone. You still have the problem. The grand jury is investigating right now. The FBI is investigating. You know where this is going. You're behind the scene on the audit right now. This audit company has been the same one, you know it, for 17 years. They've never found anything wrong. We all know there are skeletons there. It's time to combine the audit that you're going to be doing on the budget with the forensic and come up with a clean slate. Don't kick this down the road. Get it done.
Thank
So
you,
you-
Mr. Walker.
So you know where you stand and where we stand.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anyone else? Yes, go ahead. Mrs. Walker, go ahead. I could just see your hand, I'm sorry.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. Is there a cost to do an RFQ?
It's done in-house in the city.
Okay, so there's no cost. So what is the difference between waiting until some other commissioners find out from the net what it might cost, than going out with an RFQ, the RFQ coming back, 3 companies apply, all of them are too high, and you say no? To me, it's, Mr. Russell is shaking his head. To me, that just seems a simple way of getting this done instead of kicking the can
I would say
down
this,
the
but I'll
road.
let the attorney advise. I believe when you put out an RFQ, you basically should have in mind what your parameters are, and you're in good faith asking someone to contract with you.
Okay.
And so to just pull it all back and say, no, they're all too much, I
Okay.
don't think we can do that, but I'll let the attorney address there.
An RFQ is a request for qualifications, and an RFQ for professional services such as this, you cannot ask for pricing. So you can have 100 people bid, you're not going to know what it's going to cost. You hire them based off of their qualifications. So the pricing, while I think the mayor alluded to it, that you
Right.
can informally try and get a ballpark, and these commissioners can do that if they so choose. Once the solicitation goes out, the RFQ, and there's a response, included in that response will not be a price, because this commission can only consider whether or not they're adequately qualified.
Thank you for that clarification. That certainly straightened out my mind.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who has a question or comment? All right, there's been a motion and a second to table this until the next meeting to give time for some more research by the other commissioners. And if Ms. Gaynor could call the roll, please.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. So and that's approved. Item number 11, discussion and approval of the award of the disaster recovery debris removal contract bid number 18/19-1 to Ashbrit Crowder Golf, Sirius, and DRC Emergency Services. The first reading, excuse me, I went too far. Is there any discussion, or is there a motion for this?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes,
Ash-
we need a motion first.
Oh.
A motion doesn't guarantee that you have to vote for it. We just need a motion and a second for discussion purposes.
So moved.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Please go ahead, Commissioner Russell.
Ashburn and Crowder Golf were the 2 haulers that we had here during the storm. We had one hauler that qualified above them last time, and we sent them home.
We did not. The city manager did.
Okay, when I say we, I mean the city.
Okay, go ahead.
the city
I didn't
did.
mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to clarify
Yes,
that.
ma'am, you're fine. I'm using the term "we" as in the city. Is one of the other 2, I guess the question I have is, who is the company that we sent home?
Series.
Sears?
Mhm.
Okay, so that's the one that's ranked 3rd.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other discussion or questions about this?
Yes, Mayor, I just have one question to clarify. Am I correct in saying that we have to have these folks in place in order for, is this a FEMA requirement? That's my question.
Yes.
To the acting city manager. Okay,
That is correct.
okay, thank you.
Ms. Gaynor, do you have any comments that you'd like to make about
Yes.
this item to the
Yes,
commission?
ma'am.
You look like you did.
Yes, ma'am. This is also a renewal. If you just remember, we just came off of Hurricane Michael. Before the storm, we already had these haulers in place. We'd already done our RFQ. We did every procurement measures were correct. And so when the storm hit, we just deployed the haulers that were Ashbrit, Crowder Golf, and Series that were in place. Series was let go. And then now these 2, Ashbrit and Crowder Golf, have been with us almost 6 years. We gave them one renewal, which equals 6 years. And so now it's time for, it was time for us to go back out with this bid. And when we came and we sent it out, we had 6 people that responded to the bid. And we noticed during this storm this time around that we really probably needed not only 3 haulers, but actually a 4th hauler to handle so much that was going on. These haulers will also have the responsibility of removing the debris in the waterways and in the ditches. So when these haulers and these contractors are approved, these will also be the contractors that will help remove debris in waterways and ditches.
And just to further clarify that, the one that the lady who was here earlier was talking about, all those waterways that are over behind the Bel Air and Publix area, those are so much larger than just our regular ditches. And so as soon as these are approved, if they're approved tonight, and then once we have our meeting with the NRCS group with the grant, this will forward that and get that moving. And so tonight's approval will move that process forward.
That's correct.
So there's been a motion and a second, and is there any more discussion? Any questions from the public? Any comments from the public? Okay, Ms. Gaynor, if you would call the roll, please.
Commissioner Russell?
Yes.
Commissioner Tender?
Yes.
Commissioner Perno?
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge?
Yes.
Mayor Anderson?
Yes, and so those stand approved, and we'll move on to item number 12. This is the first reading of ordinance number 1077 by title only, requesting a small-scale future land use map amendment SSA-19-2, changing low-density residential to mixed use. No actions needed tonight. This will be just a first reading, and so if we would do the, just read the title, just this little part. Yeah.
An ordinance providing for the adoption pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes of a land use change from low density residential to mixed use for an approximate 4.5 acres of property located at 4506 Hilltop Lane in the city of Lynn Haven, Bay County, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith and providing an effective date.
Thank you. There is no action needed on this item tonight, but I did want to give the opportunity to our city planner, Amanda Richard, if she had anything she wanted to say about this item, anything at all, or not. It's completely up to you. I just didn't want to.
I think I will, if it's okay, because
Sure.
I'm not going to, the second reading and the public hearing is going to be at the next commission meeting, and I'm going to be out of town.
Okay.
So
go
I
ahead.
will be sending Vicky Henderson, but just in case.
Okay.
These people live at the top of Hilltop Lane, just before you go into the recreational complex. They actually live on the right-hand side at the moment, just before you go in. They have a property there, which is mixed use. This property is across the street and is currently low-density residential, and they're asking for mixed use. When you look at the 2 maps that I gave you, I did actually in the packet give you a current future land use map and then the proposed land use, and you'll see by looking at that actually there really isn't very much low-density residential in the area, and if this were to become mixed use, it is entirely compatible with the surrounding area.
Okay, thank you very much. Did anyone have a question for Ms. Richard? Go ahead,
If I may,
Commissioner
Mayor,
Perno.
this is, the application reads that they want to use this for an event center or?
I included the application in the packet because we put the applications in there for you to see. However, when it's a land use amendment, land use is state controlled and state governed, and there are certain things that you should look at and certain things that really shouldn't be considered at this point, because oftentimes people will ask for a land use change and then they'll sell it or their plans don't come to fruition. So although they are saying that they would like to have like an event center there for weddings and that kind of thing, that really isn't something, I know it's hard not to because you see it on there,
Yep.
but at this stage, really what we should be looking at is whether the land use that's being asked for is consistent and compatible with the surrounding area.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Okay, so there's no action on this item tonight. Then we'll move on to item number 13. This is discussion and approval of 2 new board members to the city's Board of Adjustments. Is there a motion for approval? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Aldridge. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions from the board?
Just thankful for the volunteers.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else? Any comments from the public? Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Ms. Gaynor, if you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Aldrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, so those two new board members stand approved, and we're happy to have them. And item number 14 goes to our city attorney, Adam Albritton. This is the update on the proposed city manager selection process. Mr. Albritton.
Thank you, Mayor. There's really two items I'd like to address for the commission. I've made the application packet available to all commissioners. Issue one was I received a late application as of July 5th. The deadline was June 28th. The commission has broad leeway in how they want to go forward in selecting the next city manager, but I would suggest if they want to include that application, which I submitted to y'all, that we reopen the solicitation so everybody can do it, or we deny that based off the late response. The second issue is the narrowing down in the selection process, assuming the commission wants to do that and not interview all 49 applicants. I would like to see if the commission can give me some sort of timeline on whether they think we can do that at the next meeting, on the last meeting in July, or the first meeting in August, whatever the commission feels is reasonable for them to review all the applicants. But if we could kind of set that next date, or at least as a goal, so I know what to anticipate.
Thank you. So let's look at the first item first. Our city attorney has asked us if we would accept an application that was submitted 4 or 5 days late. If we do that, according to what he just said, then you would need to reopen the application process to anyone else who wanted to apply. So is there a motion or a comment from the board?
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I don't think we should accept it, and therefore I don't think we should reopen. They had quite a long time.
Would you put that
To
in the form of
apply.
a motion?
Oh, yes, I'd like to make a motion that we not accept the application that came in 5 or 6 days after the deadline.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? There is none. Is there any from the public? Ms. Gaynor, would you call the roll?
Mayor.
Oh,
Ms. Tender, if we could, for the motion's sake, any application, not just that one, any application that was after the deadline.
Okay. Could you
But
just,
this is the only one that was received, right?
It's the
Oh,
only
I
one, but if
can-
I receive another one, I'd rather not have to come back and
Oh,
address it.
right, yes. Okay, I make a motion that we not accept any applications that came in or will come in after the deadline.
and is there a second?
So, second.
Okay. Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Tender,
Yes?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldrich,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. The second item is, I believe you were wanting some direction on a date. I'll let you restate what you wanted. I didn't quite get
Yes.
everything you said.
From the commission, right now we have 49 applicants. My suggestion previously to the commission is that we narrow that number down, so we're not trying to interview 49 individuals. If the commission is willing to do that, narrow it down from anywhere from 1 to 10, or it could be all 49, but I would suggest somewhere between 1 and 10. If this commission could give me a timeline on when they would be prepared to do that, because once it's narrowed down to the finalists, then that's when we would start performing the background checks necessary. If the commission wants all 49, that's certainly understandable and within their purview, but obviously background checks would take an extremely long time to do the kind of thorough background check the city wants. So my suggestion for the next step would be to narrow down from 49 to a reasonable smaller number. And I'm asking the commission, when do you think that you can do your due diligence and come back prepared to discuss the narrowing down of the applicants?
Mayor, if I may,
Please go ahead.
I believe that when we hired the last city manager, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we all 5 of us get together and we were allowed to select 2? We were all allowed to select 2. And if 2 of us selected the same 2, then we opted that we could add 2 more. I believe we ended up with 10 applicants. Is that correct?
It sounds like you're pretty close to the process that we used. I know that we had a much shorter list of applicants in that process.
Oh, there was,
And if the commission did not have any ideas or alternatives that they wanted to propose, I was going to suggest that each commissioner select 2 each. And then My suggestion would be to select 2 each, and if y'all both, if multiple people have the same individual, then that's going to narrow. Instead of trying to hit a goal of 10, if everybody here picks the same 2, well, those are going to be our 2 candidates. If we have 4, if we have 6, but we would have no more than 10 based off having 5 members of the commission times 2 would be 10.
So we're looking for a motion, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I like that. Personally, I'd like to make a motion that for the first meeting in August, each board member brings 2 names, their top 2 picks, and then we'll go through the process of either having all 10 or narrowing it down to, if we have overlapping names, I guess.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I believe we also did this in a public workshop, did we not?
Yes, we did.
Okay, I think that's very important, so that it's out in the open who everybody is selecting.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
And while I understand that numbers can be daunting, we have 49 applicants, and I've read through those things 4 times now. Potentially right now, I'm seeing 15 to 16 that I would like to look at more. So to narrow it down to 2 is, I don't want to say tantamount being impossible, but I mean, there's some really good candidates in this book. And for me to think that I have to narrow it down to 2 people is going to be difficult. I would like to say, let's maybe try to come up with 3 or 4 to the next meeting and let's look at our numbers and then narrow it down from there before we go to the interview process. That way, if I've got 4 and 3 of them match up, we may end up with 10 anyway. But that doesn't pigeonhole me to only picking 2 when I know from my reading right now, on paper, there's at least 15 in here I think that possibly could do the job. But that, again, that's my opinion, and I'll abide by what the board decides.
There's a motion on the floor that each commissioner would choose 2 from Commissioner Aldridge. So we either need to get a second for that, or Commissioner Aldridge would need to withdraw, possibly amend his motion, or just withdraw it completely. Somebody just needs to make a point of action here.
And Mayor,
Please go
again,
ahead.
The commission has broad leeway. There's not a set rules in our charter. So if the commission wants to do it in a series of steps, I would still suggest that those steps involve narrowing it down to no more than 10 to ensure that we can adequately do proper background checks, et cetera, prior to those interviews. But if you want to do it in a series of steps where, the next meeting, you narrow it down from 49 to a smaller number than the following meeting, so on and so forth. If you want to workshop it, that's perfectly fine. Either way, it will all have to be done in a public meeting. That's within the purview of the commission.
And I would also offer up, just for full disclosure, that I'm still working on a petition for 10% of the registered voters in Lynn Haven to change our charter away from the city manager form of government. So the longer that this commission draws this out, the better I like it, because I'm working on my petition. So there I am.
Well, if we amended to 5, would the board be comfortable with 5? I mean, we're discussing, I don't want it to become such a cumbersome process that we're so wrapped up in the forest that we can't see the trees, so to speak. So at least that can start narrowing it down. So I'd amend the motion to each one of us brings 5 back to the first meeting in August. That would give us ample time to research and talk to department heads and whatnot if we needed more information.
I'll second the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Commissioner Perna. So there's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
I just want to thank Commissioner Brandt or Mr. Aldridge for taking my thoughts into consideration. Thank you.
Any other discussion? And I would just say one other thing before we vote. Commissioner Russell stated in the beginning that he'd been discussing the city manager selection with department heads. And then Commissioner Aldridge just said that he wanted to have, time to do that as well. I think that, these discussions are fine as long as the department heads do not feel uncomfortable about it. And it's very difficult for someone to say no when a commissioner comes in and says, I want to talk to you about this. And I would also caution, we have an acting city manager who's doing a fabulous job. She's been doing it for almost 100 days, and I'm just going to put that out there. And so by going into department heads, I would caution that we don't make any comments that would do anything to deride the present city manager as though we need to look for someone else because perhaps she's not doing a good enough job. So I'm just throwing that caution out and reminding everybody that there is a code of ethics for the elected officials, that we are the policymakers, that our job here is to select a city manager, that we should not, and I'm not accusing anyone, I'm just cautioning, we should not be imposing any thoughts into people's heads that are employees. The management of the day-to-day operations of the city and the employees right now, the way our charter reads, is by the city manager form of government. The city manager manages the employees from day to day. And for us to go in and question employees about what they're looking for in a city manager and then possibly make comments not even meaning to about what we would like to see and maybe what we don't like about what we have could cause division or derision in the city right now. So that's just a caution from me. So, thank
Mayor?
you.
Oh.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to ask, I realize we've done this. We're going to bring 25 possible candidates back to the table. And then I want to follow up. Are we going to, at that point, narrow it down to 10? Or are we going to actually interview 25?
I would think there would be a more narrowing down process. I think this is just kind of our all-star team, so to speak, but the starters will still have to be determined using a baseball analogy.
So that's going to require 2 more meetings, one to bring back our 5, another one to narrow it down. And then the third meeting won't take place for quite a while for you to run background checks on 10. And then I'm saying we are, but are we going to interview them like we did 2 years ago, one-on-one, as well as in a public forum, stand them up here? Well, we didn't stand them up there. I sound like yeah. Anyway, I'm not so sure we shouldn't this year. And I'm very serious about this. I make a joke, but I'm very serious about this. The last time we brought every candidate up individually, asked them all the same question. Do you remember that?
We did.
We asked them all the same question. And so as they came up, they got better and better and better with their answers. So I really think that we should look at a different format this time, bring all 10 candidates up in front of the public. We can each ask however many questions you want to, 2, 3, whatever, but have them all different and just say, candidate number 3, this question is for you. And get them just like they do on the spot where they have to think fast. We'll get their true feeling about a subject matter and not give them 20 or 30 or 40 minutes to come up with an answer back there. That's just my thought. And that has nothing to do with what we just voted on, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Bravo anyway.
Thanks.
So is there any further discussion? So if I understand this right, this is what we're about to vote on, that we're going to each bring back by motion, right? 5 candidates at the first meeting in August. And then at that point,
I think at that point, we should leave it open for the commission to then have a discussion on the possibility of narrowing it down from 25 to anything less than 25, but we leave it open for now.
so all we need to decide right now is the motion and the second on bringing back 5 candidates. So do we need to restate that motion? I've completely forgotten. I don't think
Commissioner
so.
Aldridge, my understanding of the motion is that each commissioner would bring back 5 names out of the 49 applicants at the August first meeting in August. And at that time, we'll have a discussion of the possibility of any further narrowing down, but that would be step 1. Is that the content of your motion?
Yes, sir.
And there was a second from Commissioner Perno. Thank you very much. And is there no further discussion? I do hope. I'm sorry, I was just being facetious. Okay, Ms. Gaynor, please call the roll.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. So it stands approved. All right, then we'll move on now to Item number 15, long-suffering Greg Kidwell has waited to talk to us about this. The approval of resolution number 2019-07-287, establishing a cross-connection control program. If you could just give us a concise sort of what we're
I'll do my best to
looking
keep
at.
it simple. This has been a process that started about a year ago. Backflow prevention device is a device that protects the water inside the distribution system. Give you a quick example. Mrs. Smith is watering her grass with some Miracle-Gro. Irrigation system or main break at Mrs. Jones' yard can create water flowing past to suck the Miracle-Gro into your distribution system. The backflow devices stop that. This ordinance was last updated in 2014. DEP has made some further changes to the rule, and at the last sanitary inspection of our water system, they put some teeth into their inspection report that made us have to do this ordinance. That's the
Thank
5-minute
you.
version.
Thank you.
Any
Are there
questions?
any, if there is a question for Mr. Kidwell?
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
Mr. Kidwell, there's a couple of different type of backflow preventers. You've got the one that mounts next to the meter that's actually below ground level. Then you have the backflow meters that actually you can see them mostly on commercial properties.
Correct.
Am I correct to say that this system will require above ground backflow preventers on irrigation meters and at residential?
For
as well?
residential, yes, sir. And it will
that's going to be an
also,
additional cost to us or to the residents?
to the resident. The city's responsibility currently stops at the meter. All these backflow devices are on the homeowner side of the meter. This ordinance too does also address the dual checks, the ones that are buried in the ground. They have to be changed out every 2 years, 10 years, I'm sorry, every 10 years. So this ordinance makes the city have to track that and implement a program to have those devices changed out.
And then the ones above ground have to be inspected every so many years?
Once a year, every 2 years for residential. Commercial is still once a year.
Can a resident install those himself, or does he have to have a licensed plumber?
They can install it. We do inspect it to make sure it's done correctly. You have to have it 12 inches above grade so that nothing can enter back into the system.
And then
The inspections have to be done by a certified inspector.
Mayor, may I continue, Mayor?
Sure, go ahead.
Is the intent of the city to charge for those inspections, or is this going to be a free service?
No, we don't charge.
We will not? Okay. Do we have an idea of what those backflow preventer, what the cost of those things are?
Yeah, the larger ones above ground, they're running around $200. The smaller ones in the meters, they're running around 50.
And then the installation on them?
Correct.
So theoretically, for a resident that has 2 meters, which most of us do, we're looking at $250 in parts and probably another $300 or $400 in installation if we pay a plumber.
That would be a rough estimate, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I like the idea of not getting Mrs. Jones' stuff in my water, but is the city going to allow our residents to pay on this, on their water bill? I mean, that's a lot of
No,
money for a senior
This
citizen.
would be all private property. This would be up to the homeowner to do. We would just have to track it, document it, provide an annual report to the Department of Environmental Protection showing how progress is being made.
And that seems, I get it, you're not setting the cost, but it seems like a pretty expensive part for a senior
this would be-
citizen.
Yeah, this would be phased in. We know by when the meter was set, how old that device is. So your homeowner's device is every 10 years. So we could go back 10 years, that meter would have the oldest device on it. Those homes that had that meter put in would then have to get their device changed.
Wow. And there's not any alternative to having this outcome without it costing our residents this kind of money?
Well, the board could make the policy that says, utility department, you're in charge of those backflow devices. It's going to come with a large cost to the city. Back in 2014, the ordinance was changed to make sure that our point of responsibility stopped at the meter and didn't go past it. That clear line between public and private property is essential to conduct business. But the board could make that policy change. It comes with a big price tag.
Okay, just one more question, that's all. The meter that you're speaking of, I know this is silly, but I got to understand this in my head. Is that the meter in my front yard that's under the ground? You want to put something 12 inches up
Only if you.
next to my palm tree?
No, only if you were to put a irrigation meter in, would you have to have the above ground device. The
Okay.
above ground device provides a higher level of protection than the one that serves your home that's in the box that's below grade. You drive over it with the lawnmower.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Kidwell?
Mayor, if I may,
Please go ahead.
what happens if we don't do this? What is the DEP going to do to the city if we decide to say we're not
At
going
our,
to do
at our
this?
last inspection, we had a compliance offer. That's the nice way of saying, hey, we're going to work with you to correct this problem. If we don't correct the problem, they're going to come back to us with some more teeth, find our water system in noncompliance and everything that goes along with that.
So in my reading of this entire packet, what I'm gathering from it is that this is a first step in the city of Lynn Haven, showing that we're making a good faith effort to meet the requirements of DEP. And so if we, as a commission, approve this resolution in establishing this cross-connection control program, even if only 10 people buy in and put these meters in, then we have made that first step and we've shown DEP that we are working toward the goal.
And we've already started making those steps. We've had all new irrigation meters since last year get to have the higher level protection device. So we've already shown we're working towards that. This just is the next step in that. You're correct.
Mayor, may I ask another question?
Yes, please.
So correct me. We're not going to go after enforcement. So like my house, I built my house in 06, so I know my backflow meter doesn't match.
There's
so
a
you're not
lot
going to
of,
come force me to do it.
there's a,
Not now.
correct, not at this point. There's a lot of work that we have to do to get to that point. Let's say your device, your meter was 10 years old and it is time for you to do that. You'd get a letter, you'd get a follow-up letter, there'd be a conversation. If it absolutely came to the point where I'm not going to do it, then the ordinance gives us the teeth to turn your water off.
So at the end of
So
the day,
there is a
bill.
stick. Yeah, there is a stick. What happens in between that, if the board says, well, take example, a senior citizen fixed income, maybe the board says, hey, in specific instance, the city can do this. We're not taking responsibility for it, but we can help that citizen out. I mean, there's lots of area that we could work and still meet the letter of DEP rule. So.
At the end of the day, I know with my business, we had to do it, for example, last year, right before the storm, actually. And you're right, for the residents, it's just no fun having to pay it. But it's also one of those things to where you want to play the game, you got to play by the rules, you know what I mean? So you just suck it up and deal with it. But is DEP, when they were down here talking to you about it, I mean, were they implying that, you know, hey, let's get this act together?
They've been very patient with us.
Yeah.
Like I say, we've started this over a year ago. Our inspection was several months ago. So they've kind of been nudging us along. This last inspection, they did have that compliance offer in there, which is the next step into saying, we're done, we're patient.
I'm not allowed as mayor to make a motion, but I would just say to the commission as a whole that I think that if you were to make a motion and go forward with this evening, it would be this step in bringing us at least into the light of DEP is not going to be down our throats. Correct. And then the next thing is that in the meantime, while we're waiting to see who buys in and pays for this themselves, perhaps we could look at CRA funding for some of our older residents who live in the old part of Lynn Haven that maybe we could consider as the CRA advisory board. Maybe they would want to look into, allocating some of that money to help with some of the people who have certain incomes, just like we've supplemented builders building houses and businesses putting up storefronts. Maybe we could help some of our lower income residents that way. Perhaps Ben could look into some of the grants that would be available, environmental grants. There are a lot of those that we could assist people who have a great income but just don't want to spend $250 on this. So I think there's some, if we go ahead with this tonight, in my opinion, it would at least take the pressure off, and it would give us some time as a city to look at some other ways of financing this for people who are having difficulty. That's my thought.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I'm all for that idea, but I also have another question. For those who are rebuilding,
Mhm.
if we were to approve this tonight to go ahead and, get on the bandwagon, could they include that to have this done with their
Only-
insurance?
Only if yes, they could. We were going to use the date of the water meter installation to kind of judge that 10-year mark. So if their meter was damaged during the storm and we put new meter in, they already have a new device put in
Okay.
as part of that process.
So any
But if they
rebuilds
wanted
would-
to retrofit into that or add an irrigation meter, that puts them at that higher level of protection. So.
Thank you.
Thank you for all the information. Anybody else need to ask a question? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
At this point, is there a motion?
I make a motion, we move ahead.
So there's been a motion for approval of resolution number 2019-07-287, establishing a cross-connection control program. Thank you.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Did I ask for the resolution to be read? I don't remember. Is it necessary that I do that?
We should read the
Ms. Gaynor, would you please read the resolution?
Resolution number 2019-07-287, a resolution of the City of Lynn Haven establishing a cross-connection control program.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion from the public? Mr. Walker?
Good question. I can do it right from here.
Okay.
What about reuse water?
Reuse water doesn't apply.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Ms. Gaynor, please call the roll.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Russell,
Reluctantly, yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes. Stands approved. So we'll hopefully not be cut off, our water won't be cut off from the Environmental Protection Agency. Moving on to item number 16, the first reading of ordinance number 1078, repealing, and this is part of this other one, repealing and replacing Chapter 70, Article 2 of the Lynn Haven Code of Ordinances regulating cross-connection control devices. So if we could do the first reading of ordinance number 1078.
An ordinance of the City of Lynn Haven, Florida, repealing and replacing Chapter 7, Article 2 of Lynn Haven Code of Ordinances regulating cross-connection control devices, adopting a cross-connection control plan, providing for authority, policies, and procedures, providing for adoption by resolution of a cross-connection control plan, providing for enforcement and appeals, providing for repealer, codification, and severability, providing for an effective date.
Thank you, and that is a first reading, so no action is required this evening. We'll move on to item number 17, and I did bring this one forward several meetings ago, and I would like to hopefully bring it to action tonight. I've asked that the commission would fund a domestic violence unit within our Lynn Haven Police Department. After meeting with the chief, Ramey, the annual cost would involve a vehicle and $70,000 for personnel. This would be specially trained personnel who could specifically work these cases so that they don't fall through the cracks. I also ask that it be named in honor of Ashley Adams. She's one of our own who was viciously murdered this past year by a boyfriend who was not happy because he had been spurned or whatever, and so she was murdered with a weapon. And there have also been others. Alicia Kinsall, not living in Lynn Haven, but from Bay County. There's a long list. I won't go through all the names. Those are two that I knew personally. Ashley was a classmate of my daughter's. I think that Lynn Haven can lead the way in this. While there are certainly cases of men who are victims of domestic violence, for the most part, it tends to be women. It tends to be by those who, either their spouses or boyfriends or someone who's angry with them, and sometimes it's just random. Children, the sexual abuse and the parent or the step parents who are afraid to report it, those who live in fear every day of their lives. And if we have this unit that is specifically concentrated and dedicated to these families so that they don't fall through the cracks, and this officer knows to check on this particular person who's called 4 times or 5 times. And I will just tell you that one of the young ladies that I named tonight died screaming on 911 for help as she was viciously cut to ribbons with a knife. And I don't want that to happen anymore in Lynn Haven. I don't want any more children or women to become victims. So I hope that you would consider making a motion and possibly moving forward with this. Thank you.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
So there's a motion. Was that a second, Commissioner Tender?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Would any of you like to say anything before we move forward?
Yes, ma'am. If I
Go
could,
ahead.
I'd just like to say I think it's great. I think that,
Awesome.
with my wife and 2 little girls, their domestic violence is a problem in our society, and any man that would hit a woman is not a man. So I think this would be great for our city.
Thank you. Anyone else on the board? Anyone from the public? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I have a daughter that's a police officer, son-in-law that's a police officer, family members all involved. Please make sure you choose the right person. Also dealing with children every day. We see what happens after the fact. You need to make sure this is wonderful.
Chief Ramey's nodding his head behind you.
Wonderful, wonderful thing, but you need to make sure you have the right person.
Yes.
And they need to be trained, because it's more dangerous for that police officer walking in that thinks they're walking up to something that may not be a problem, and they die before they hit the door.
Thank you for bringing that very important thing up, that very important comment. Mrs. Walker? And while Mrs. Walker's walking up, I would add that I did speak with Ashley Adams' family, and they are in agreement and in favor if we went forward for her name to be used. Thank you.
Janet Walker, 1106 Michigan Avenue. To straighten my mind again, since it was a little confused earlier today, it says here $70,000 a year. Then it mentions vehicle.
Those are 2 separate items.
So the vehicle is an addition.
Yes.
Cost to the
Yes.
$70,000. Number 2 is, has anyone from Lynn Haven, whether it be from the police or the commission, yourself, because you put this on the agenda, have you discussed this or spoken to the Bay County Sheriff's Office?
Indirectly, and I'll let the chief, if you don't mind, I'll let Chief Ramey make a couple of comments about it, because he came to us from the Sheriff's Department, and he and I have discussed how we could tie our programs together. So,
and before he comes, may I just
yes,
say why I brought that up?
Yes.
There was a reason recently where I went to the Bay County Sheriff's Office to speak to somebody. And as soon as you walk in the door, on the right-hand side, there's a huge display covering spousal abuse. I don't know if they went into children abuse, but I wondered if we are putting money into something that has already been covered by another department or person or unit.
And I would reply before Chief Ramey comes up that the reason that this spoke to me the way it did is because there are so many cases here in Lynn Haven, not Bay County, but in our city. And while I have sympathy and empathy and compassion for the rest of Bay County, Lynn Haven is my concern as mayor. And I'll let Chief Ramey pick it up with that. But I do hear what you're saying.
If someone from Lynn Haven calls 911, do they get Lynn Haven 911 or are they getting Bay County
I'll
911?
let Chief Ramey speak to that.
Thank you.
I'll answer that first question. If you dial from a cell phone anywhere in Bay County, it immediately goes to the sheriff's office. They transfer it to the Lynn Haven PD, and those lines are recorded. And secondly, yes, I have talked to the sheriff's office in regards to this. They have a victim advocate, and it's very similar to the program they have down there. But we have enough caseload where Lynn Haven needs its own, where we can focus on victims. Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, correct.
Unfortunately.
And the $70,000 includes benefits as well. It's the entire package for one person. Yes, ma'am. And they'll work crimes against children, sexual battery, and domestic violence, all 3 of them.
And Chief Ramey, could you address to her what you did to my question when I talked about it being one person and you said there would always be another officer riding with that person? In other words, it's a team.
Yes.
It's not just
team
the
effort.
one.
Yes, not just one.
And Chief Ramey, can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
It's left me.
It's okay.
It was a good question, too.
You can come back. Does anyone else have a question? And we can come back to Commissioner Tender? Anyone from the public? Commissioner Tender, did it come back yet?
No, it's a goner.
Are you okay?
Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's been a long meeting. Thank you, Chief Ramey. All right, at this point, Ms. Gaynor, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Russell,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
As a father and a commissioner, yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes, and I thank each of you for your coming together and let's doing that as a group because the voices that have been silenced need someone to speak for them. Thank you so much. And with that, I think that's a very happy note that we're going to do something that positive. We are adjourned. Thank you. That was a good one.